Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Space Foundation's interview series for women of color in space. I'm Nivedita Raju, Director of Legal Affairs and Research at Space At the Foundation, we firmly believe in the benefit of outer space for all of humankind, and so each episode of this series will feature a different speaker highlighting their experience in the international space sector as a woman of color. This week, we're excited to interview Alessandra Pacini. Alessandra is a Brazilian-born American space physicist. Welcome, Alessandra. Please tell us what inspired you to choose a career in space physics.
Well, when I was a teenager, I saw the movie Contact, and that was really a turning point to me. I hadn't read the book before, but I didn't really picture the woman in that place, in the scientific role and doing, research in radio telescopes. So when I saw the video and Jodie Foster there, using Arecibo, using VLA, that was really the moment that I decided I really want to be a scientist.
Amazing. And what does your ongoing research focus on?
So I didn't go to astronomy like Jodie Foster in the movie. In Brazil, we have a grad school. The name of the title is Space Geophysics, because it really includes also aspects of the Earth and the geophysics into the course. So I started my science career, doing solar physics using radio telescopes, studying the solar flares and the star. And then I started coming to the Earth, and then I started trying to understand the impact of the solar activity into the Earth's atmosphere. And I started by the upper atmosphere, and then I went down to the troposphere, trying to understand the solar impacts on the climate. And then I came back to the upper atmosphere, and then I did a second PhD in solar modulation of cosmic rays, which is also a space physics field. So, but it's more like towards cosmic rays. So now I do research in all these aspects. We call that like heliophysics, because it's everything that happens inside the heliosphere, which is where the sun dominates around this. It's much bigger than the solar system, but it's everything around the sun. That's what really matters to me, and the impacts on Earth.
That's fascinating. And outer space is such a unique environment, which is also why so many questions are constantly emerging. It's wonderful to see you as a leader in your field. When you began teaching space physics in Brazil, what problems did you identify in terms of young girls and women who are learning about this subject?
We are still a minority in this field, right? As a grad student, I was the only girl in my class when we started master's degree. And I actually didn't recognize that as a problem at that time. And after I became a teacher, then I started realizing that really that makes the girls uncomfortable sometimes in the subject. They don't feel so confident about the topics, even though we all comes from the physics course. But even in physics, we usually are minorities too. And so those things really stops us from growing and exploring the full potential. After I graduate, I feel the difference between me and my colleagues in terms of like impacts on the career, about family decisions, maternity, and how that impacts our CV. And also, I feel now living in the US, the group here, the science game here is really aggressive. You gotta put yourself out there. You gotta sell your fish, like we say in Brazil. You gotta you gotta make your marketing. You gotta connect to the program managers, and those things to me is very hard to do, because I don't feel good enough to go, or sometimes I don't even apply a CV. So, those things we read in the studies about how why we have the Caesar effect, for example, in academic fields. This is really true here, and I can feel by my own experience. It's really impactful.
Yeah, of course. And I think transforming that culture is a long process, but people who do work like yours are changing that one step at a time. Can you share a bit more about your experience as a UN Space4Women Mentor and your work in the Girls in Space series?
Sure. So I got involved with this United Nations discussion about gender equality in science when I first presented the project of the Girls in Space books to this conference. I present my books, and they love it. And we start having this conversation about the power of these books and the potential that we could explore, using that to helping close the gender gap in science, and helping closing when it's the starting, which is around 10 years old, right? That's when the girls got completely disengaged from science topics and STEM, and they feel uncomfortable, and they start like feeling boys are more capable to do it. And these books really, it's a series of books that I wrote to introduce some topics about Earth and space science to the girls. And it started as one book, and then became a series of books. And now we have other activities around that. And last year, 2020, they launched the Space4Women Network. And they, because I was already some years working with them, like participating on the meetings and talking about these topics, I was one of the selected mentors. And inside this initiative, I ran some activities to support the Space4Women program. One was a capacity building for teachers. So we trained some teachers in Brazil to teach those topics, because the topics of space and science, they are part of the curriculum now, because I think, the country recognizes the power of the space sector and how important it is for us to be part of it. This week, we launched our satellite with help of India. And so that was very cool. So, this is important for us to take over and be really leaders on this segment. And so it's part of the curriculum, but the teachers from the elementary school and middle school in Brazil, they come from biology. So they don't have much training on those topics to really explore and inspire the kids. So we use the books to help the teachers in Brazil. That was a great experience. Like I team up with friends, science teachers and astrophysicists, and we create this course that was very cool. We call Girls in Space in the schools. And then this month we are launching the Girls in Space book clubs. It's a book club for girls. I'm going to host the meetings, and we are going to discuss not only the stories, but also the science topics. And that's an informal way to bring these topics in this moment of pandemic that nobody can really socialize. So it's kind of like you make a group of girls that loves books, loves space, and then you bring a scientist and then in the author to talk to them. So I hope that can inspire them to pursue those careers as well.
That's so heartwarming, and what brilliant ideas. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Moving to a difficult subject, you mentioned that your own experience has been extremely negative at times, and you've battled harassment and toxic work culture. As someone who experienced this kind of behavior in the workplace, how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I faced some problems later in my career. As a grad student, I never really had any big issue related to gender to overcome. But when I became a scientist, I faced some little problems that really uncomfortable things in the lab, related to the division of tasks, for example, in a project. So, the boss that thought that the women in the lab should just do the administrative part of the project while the guys were doing the science, So these kind of uncomfortable things we can overcome by fighting and speaking up. Sometimes I didn't have the maturity enough at the time to realize how to act and actually act. So I was just angry and holding that inside me, and I didn't speak up. That was a mistake that I started fixing, with the years. So the real problem I faced was when I started working as a scientist in the Arecibo Observatory, which was this radio telescope, 1,000 feet, 305 meters dish, very, very big, and in Puerto Rico. So it's already in an island. It's already isolated. It's in the middle of the mountains, and then you had 100 people working there. So it's a kind of a little bubble. And when I got there, they were having some problems with the administration. And I started fighting against the administration because I saw most of the women in the group crying on the floors, the postdocs really non-motivated, my colleagues really oppressed, and we didn't have any voice to speak. And, even things like I proposed an experiment, people didn't really want to take serious, and they were like consulting other male astronomers to see if it makes sense. So things that were like so toxic, and I started fighting that in a way that nobody won, to be honest, because I was just directly addressing the problems while I should be, finding a way to grow inside, grow enough to be in a position to fix it. And I didn't have the stomach, and I didn't have, the maturity, I think, to do it. It was a relationship that was really, really, mixed with emotions and passions that I had for the place and for the people there that became my family. So I got an advice from an experienced astronomer who was actually the inspiration of Carl Sagan to write the story Contact, and that inspired me. So Dr. Jill Tarter, I told her my problems, and she said she faced big problems when she started working there and working in observatories in general, because she was always the only woman in the group. But she told me, you got to find a way to keep going and go around. Sometimes you cannot fix the issue directly at the moment, but you got to keep going and go around, and when you are further ahead, you can look back and fix it. She told me that, but I was not able to do it myself. So I really start trying to fight the problem there and trying to fix it. And I couldn't really help the group. So that now I see the impact that in my career, because when you are exposed to a toxic environment and you cannot really either fix or leave, what happens to you is that like your self-esteem, academic self-esteem, your confidence in your work, everything is impacted. And it's really hard to me. I left the island, so now I'm spending more time in Colorado than in Puerto Rico. I still have my house there, but I found another group. I came outside, but I'm still getting troubles to work on my data that I collected there, to come back to. It's kind of like I put all the pain in a box and I put away, because I couldn't deal better with that. So I to other women facing problems out there, what I can say is like, be conscious about the impacts that the situation can cause in your career, in your life, and try to move on as fast as you can. If you don't see any help from the institution, try to find other place to go until you grow enough to come back and fix it. We need help. The problem we have in academia is we don't have many women in leadership positions. So we don't have anybody to hold our hand to understand your problems, And the institutions, they are protecting themselves. They are not really protecting the group. So, even though you can open a HR process, you can, start a complaint into discrimination, but really they are worried about if you can prove sexual harassment, maybe you have a way to go through. But if it's not sexual harassment, it's just gender discrimination or something you can't prove, because it's really like your word against your boss's words. So these kind of things the institutions are not prepared to deal with. That's how I feel. And talking to other women in the field and the other institutions, we see the same problem everywhere. So I think we got to understand that the science game was made by men to men, and they try to the system is trying to keep that the way it was prepared. And having women bringing diversity to the table, not only women but diversity in general. You need to change the rules, because those rules are not good to everybody. And institutions are not really willing to do that. Not all institutions are willing to do that in a proactive way. So you gotta unite. You gotta try to find help from others. We gotta go ahead of them, above them, to try to fix from the top. It's hard to fix from the bottom, and especially if you are not feeling included and you are not feeling belonging, you are feeling alone. So try to talk about that with other women, and to feel that you are not alone. Talk to mentors. That's the importance of mentoring too. Like you talk to more senior women, or even women in the same level of you in the institution, that can help you feeling that you are not alone. I think this is very important.
Thank you for talking about such a difficult experience. I imagine how challenging it must have been for you to go through all of this. I think your advice about our ultimate goal being more women in leadership positions, that makes a lot of sense. And I hope that we're all going to work towards a future that has more of us in these positions of power. My final question to you is, what advice do you have for women in Brazil and in Latin America who want to pursue your profession?
Well, in Brazil, I have more experience about like the paths you can take. So figuring out a good university that has a consistent program for engineer or physics or science in general, and already during the undergrad is starting your network. So I think, for science and for technology and innovation, you gotta be connected, and you gotta understand also that everything is about collaboration and there is no borders. So be ready to be traveling around, to talk to people in other countries, study English, because that's important. Even though, like, I'm trying to not be ashamed of my accent and things, because we are not native speaker, and sometimes that can put you a little shy, don't speak up. But don't feel shy, because we are a community very international, and most of us, I think majority of us, are not English speaking, native English speaking, and so it's not a problem. You just need to be out, to be visible, and start connecting. And during the undergrad course, I suggest people always to look around, try to do some internship here and there, and try the waters, experience different groups and how they work in different fields, because that's the moment for you to figure out really what fits in your life and what you're passionate about. And then for grad school, you can already have connections, people already know you, and put work in conference, start going to, and now we have the situation about the COVID, so we are all connected through Zoom and through the internet. So I think this is a great opportunity for people to be able to connect with scientists and engineers and people from different countries at this moment, and talk about it, career, and listening to things what they have to say. And I think networking is the key in this career. All the rest you can do yourself. You can study, you can figure out a great group. Nowadays, data is also open. Most part of the space data is open access, so you can actually work on your lab, having the tools from your institution, but you don't need to be in the center that collect the data. So this is a very good step towards really sharing the benefits of space, so we all can use everybody's data. And this is important. It's important for you to bring your unique angle to the problem, and bring your needs, your country's needs, and also represent that on the space sector. This is very cool.
I'm sure your advice will inspire many more to follow in your footsteps. Thank you, Alessandra. It was wonderful speaking with you today. Space God Foundation will announce details for episode 3 shortly. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and follow our page for updates.